Welcome back to New Rockstars! I'm Erik Voss, and this is a breakdown of Star Wars Rebels Season 3. Our breakdowns of Ahsoka Episode 1 and Episode 2 are on the channel now, and we are doing this 4-part Rebels recap series as a companion series to give you a kind of cheat sheet of the Easter eggs, plot points, and tie-ins to the larger Star Wars universe. And while Rebels Season 1 and Rebels Season 2 are interesting and worthy of watching all of, Season 3 is when we really start cooking with gas, because Thrawn is here. Please support our network with one of these Ahsoka-inspired Fulcrum shirts at nerdriot.shop, and please subscribe to the break group for our Ahsoka after show, WikiLeaks. And thanks to Rocket Money for sponsoring today's video. More about them in a minute. Let's get started. Episodes 1 and 2, Steps into Shadow Parts 1 and 2. It's 6 months after the Season 2 finale, and Ezra has a new haircut, a new green lightsaber, and some unnatural abilities unlocked by the Sith holocron from Malachor. It continues to speak to him through the presence that is the spiritual essence of that Sith who activated that super weapon on Malachor. Ezra shows off that new haircut, but also turns to show us that scar. This is his archetypal unhealable wound from that duel with the Grand Inquisitor in Season 1, symbolizing the festering dark side presence in him. They rescue Hondo Ohnaka, and Ezra lets his Ugnaught partner die and then uses the Force to walk an Imperial walker off a ledge. Yikes! Sabine repainted her armor this season so that on her pauldron now is Ahsoka's Morai bird, because as far as they know, Ahsoka is dead. But it's this bird, this episode, that leads Kanan to Bendu. Hera has a new captain badge since she's been promoted in the Phoenix Squadron. Ezra speaks to the holocron, and its red glow is in his eyes, giving us this close-up matching the close-up of Thrawn's red Chiss eyes later this episode. Kanan confiscates the holocron and gets summoned out to the Atollon Winds by Bendu, voiced by Tom Baker, who's the Fourth Doctor. In Doctor Who, David Tennant is now voicing Huyang in Ahsoka. Bendu is a Force user who's neither Jedi nor Sith. Actually, the word Bendu comes from George Lucas's original treatment for Star Wars, when Jedi Knights were going to be called Jedi Bendu. Bendu teaches Kanan how to use the Force to see, mostly by seeing past his own fear, so that he can walk past these Krykna spiders. Kanan leaves the holocron with Bendu. Grand Admiral Thrawn enters the chat, voiced by Lars Mikkelsen, who will also be playing Thrawn in live action. He is the villain of these final 2 seasons of Rebels and of Ahsoka. The fact that he shows up here in the premiere of Rebels Season 3 is a very, very big deal, because this season was 2016-2017, when everyone was kind of confused what Star Wars Legends were versus Star Wars canon, and everyone was really worried when Disney made that recategorization, because Thrawn is the coolest character from Star Wars Expanded Universe fiction. From Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire novels in 1991, the fact that Dave Filoni put him in Rebels here shows us how important those stories are to him and how we can never forget them. So Thrawn wisely outsmarts the Rebels' plot to steal Y-Wings.
I will start my operations here and pull the rebels apart piece by piece. They'll be the architects of their own destruction.
And in this transition, we see his red eyes watching over their every move, as he will throughout this entire season. Thrawn ends up being correct. Ezra's dark side influence bullishness causes them to gain only a few Y-Wings at the cost of their Phantom shuttle. R.I.P. Phantom 1. On Episode 3, the Holocrons of Fate. Maul captures most of the rebel crew and demands from Kanan and Ezra both the Sith holocron and Jedi holocron. Maul recognizes Sabine as Mandalorian and says that he once ruled her people, referring to the Season 5 arc in Clone Wars where Maul took over the Death Watch and the Darksaber and took Mandalore. Bendu tells Kanan and Ezra that if Jedi and Sith holocrons are united, it would give the wielder too much vision, something Kanan and Ezra learn the value of by recovering the Sith holocron from a Krykna cave, resisting their fear, and Bendu warns,
once a secret is known, it cannot be unknown.
They return to Maul's asteroid base, which was last seen in the Son of Dathomir comic run, and after Maul tries to blow Kanan out of the airlock, he does a forced spacewalk like Leia will do in The Last Jedi. This episode released in October 2016, while The Last Jedi was still being shot because Carrie Fisher was still alive at this point. Ezra and Maul join the holocrons, and for a moment, Maul sees his destination.
I see him. Twin sons.
This will eventually lead Maul to Tatooine to find Kenobi! Alright, Episode 4, the Antilles Extraction. After losing a bunch of A-Wings, the Rebels get a transmission from a new mystery Fulcrum agent using Ahsoka's same symbol based on her Togruta head markings. Sabine infiltrates an Imperial Academy to recruit Wedge Antilles, voiced by Nathan Kress. Here, in their simulation, the TIE fighters explode in a way reminiscent to toys, where the wings pop off to simulate battle damage. When Sabine, Wedge, and others walk out to the TIEs, they use this catwalk and lower into the cockpits, and I love this distinction that we see throughout Star Wars. You step up into Rebel ships, you lower down into these bat-like Imperial TIEs. We actually saw this in the Eye of Aldani episode of Andor as well. I think it looks so cool. Kallus actually ends up helping them escape to repay Zeb for that ice cave moment that they had. Episode 5, Hera's Heroes. So we return to Ryloth, where Hera's father, Cham, and Numa ride blurgs. These are the same Arvala 7 mounts that Din Djarin rides in The Mandalorian, but they're actually first seen in Ewok's The Battle of Endor. Zeb punches a scout trooper to steal his helmet, a helmet that Ezra will continue to use and might show up in the background of Sabine's home in Ahsoka. The Syndulas have lost their family Kalikori.
It honors all who have come before.
Each parent adds to the artwork to include themselves in the legacy.
Family history is living art.
So an appreciation of family history through art is a key theme from here forward. As Thrawn says this episode,
To defeat an enemy, you must know them. Not simply their battle tactics, but their history, philosophy, art.
Sabine Wren is an artist, and that will play a big role in Ahsoka. Also, Calicori will show up in Luthen's shop in Andor, and it's just kind of crappy that he has one. All right, episode 6, The Last Battle. Rex takes them to a battlefield from the Clone Wars era. They get captured by battle droids still on the Separatist programming, led by General Kalani. This episode shows how for Clone Wars veterans, the war didn't really end with any true resolution, as they were all misled by these false motives and political games. And because this is a Clone Wars vibe episode, this episode ends with the Clone Wars animated series logo and theme over the credits. Alright, episode 7, Imperial Super Commandos. Sabine Wren tries to lure Mandalorian Finn Rao and his protectors to the rebel cause over a game of Cubicod. This is from the 2007 novel Legacy of the Force Sacrifice. We see the Phantom 2 in this episode as a new paint job, thanks Sabine, with a Timothy on the side. They get captured by a group of Imperial Mandalorians led by Gar Saxon, voiced by Ray Stevenson, the late actor playing Baylan Skoll in Ahsoka. Again, we learn that some Mandalorians just support the Empire, and it kind of sucks. Sabine and Finn escape, but Sabine defeats Gar in hand-to-hand combat, and Finn joins the Rebels, a key partner from here forward. Episode 8, Iron Squadron. The Spectres meet the Iron Squadron, led by Commander Sato's nephew Mart, voiced by Zachary Gordon. It's kind of a parallel team to the Ghosts, just younger and dumber, but both teams have crabby astromechs and love space waffles. Gutierrez is named after Rebels retcon host Andy Gutierrez, and the Rebels recon staff get shouted out through the names throughout this episode. Okay, episode 9, The Winkathu Job. Hondo Ohnaka is back, wearing a stupid pirate hat with an even stupider as Morrigan hanging out with him, returning from the premiere with that stolen Imperial landing craft. They all head to the planet Winkathu, hoping to get some proton bombs, but Imperial DT sentry droids attack. These are inspired by the Dark Troopers in the Dark Forces game, which would also go on to inspire the Phase 3 Dark Troopers in The Mandalorian Season 2. Just everyone be careful with these Hondo episodes because it'll make you really hate that load-in area for Smuggler's Run. I'm sorry, I'm just not a huge fan of Hondo Ohnaka. He's kind of f***ing annoying. All right, episode 10, An Inside Man. So back on Lothal, Ezra and Kanan rejoin Ryder Azadi, Clancy Brown's escaped prisoner who knew Ezra's parents when they were in prison together. We saw him in Season 2, and Azadi serves as the governor of Lothal and Ahsoka. Family friend Sumar returns from episode 4 of Season 1, but he dies when Thrawn makes him test a faulty speeder bike. The workers wear outfits that kind of look like color swap Narkina 5 prisoner outfits from Andor. Thrawn does a whole deep dive on all the imagery and art that he can find in relation to the Ghost crew, including depictions of Loth wolves, as well as murals from Mandalore depicting an ancient battle with the Jedi. We actually saw these in Clone Wars, and then this one with the woman crying is clearly based on Pablo Picasso's Guernica. Also, Thrawn has a Jedi Temple Guard mask on his desk, like the one the Grand Inquisitor wore. Callus reveals himself as Fulcrum, and the rebels learn of Thrawn's plans to build the new TIE fighter, the TIE Defender, which comes with shields. It's designed based on the 1994 TIE fighter video game. Episode 11, Visions and Voices. This is a very important episode to watch. This was the mid-season finale, the last episode to come out before Rogue One released in December 2016. Maul appears to Ezra in creepy background apparitions, just in these flashes of lightning, but there is no lightning storm going on. This is all just in Ezra's mind. He's freaking out. So they go to Bendu, where they find the real Maul, who takes Ezra to Dathomir, and Kanan and Sabine follow closely. As they walk into Dathomir, Maul explains,
My family, the Nightsisters, were killed. Masterful witches they were.
We actually saw this in Clone Wars, a 4-part arc starting with the Season 4 Episode 19 episode Massacre. The Nightsisters was a force-wielding cult, including Maul's mother, Talzin, who used sorcery to re-grant Maul the ability to walk. General Grievous killed many of them off, but we know of one survivor, Merrin, in Jedi Fallen Order, and now on Ahsoka, Thrawn acolyte Morgan Elsbeth was revealed to be a Nightsister. So everything we can find on the Nightsisters, we need to pay attention to. Maul places his hand on this leg of a statue, and we see the other statues bisected at the waist, the same kind of injury that Maul suffered from Kenobi. Actually, inside Maul's home, in the Mandoa language, he wrote Kenobi on the wall. He's got all kinds of interesting odds and ends. Some spears, like the one used by his brother Savage Opress, and a battle droid head. He also has a painting of Duchess Satine Kryze, sister to Bo-Katan, and Obi-Wan's former lover in Clone Wars, whom Maul executed with the Darksaber. We also hear a piano version of Satine's theme as Ezra looks up at it. And it kind of looks like Maul has defaced this portrait just out of hatred of Kenobi. But the most important object here is the Darksaber. Maul previously wielded it in Season 5 of Clone Wars, and here on Rebels, it re-enters the Star Wars timeline. Yes, I've talked about the Darksaber a lot in all my breakdowns of The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, but this is where it re-enters the chat. Maul and Ezra drink a Nightsister potion to merge their minds to gain the knowledge that the other has from their Sith Jedi Holocron crossover moment, and Maul realizes that Kenobi is on Tatooine, but they awaken the spirits of the Nightsisters.
Hey, how are you?
The spirits of the Nightsisters.
Sabine and Kanan get possessed by these spirits. They're trapped in the temple, and Maul leaves, but possessed Sabine has picked up the Darksaber. And to me, that is a critical moment, because I believe the Darksaber is cursed. It should have stayed in here. Sabine only picked it up because evil Nightsister sorcery compelled her to do so. The Nightsisters are behind a lot of this stuff. Ezra uses his green lightsaber and the Darksaber to destroy the altar, banishing the Nightsister ghosts, but in characters like Morgan Elspeth, the Nightsister legacy lives on. Episodes 12 and 13, The Ghost of Geonosis Part 1 and 2, Rebel extremist Saw Gerrera returns, now voiced by Forrest Whitaker, who had just had a big moment as Saw Gerrera in Rogue One. This is the era of Saw that we actually saw in the flashback of Rogue One when he rescued Jyn Erso when he was still bald. Saw has gone missing on the planet of Geonosis that you remember from Attack of the Clones. And remember, the Geonosians had been mostly eradicated by the Empire to keep secret the Death Star construction. So Saw interrogates his surviving Geonosian named Click Clack, who draws 2 circles in the dirt indicating the Death Star, but everyone else is like, what's that? Rex explains that Saw's sister Steela Gerrera died from a Geonosian-built gunship, and we saw Steela in Clone Wars, and her death would be a rallying cry for the Onderonians. Click Clack's hideout also has a queen egg that would give the Geonosians a chance to repopulate. He also has a clone trooper helmet, the arm and head of a battle droid, and part of a destroyer droid. The rebels try to retrieve gas canisters to prove the Empire's war crimes, but they end up losing them in their escape, and Bail Organa says the Senate can't really do anything about it. Poor Geonosians. All right, episode 14, Warhead. It's a Zeb episode. Thrawn unleashes Imperial infiltrator droids across the galaxy, and one lands at Chopper Base on Atollon, cannibalizing other droids to repair itself and preparing to transmit info back to the Empire, hitting a self-destruct protocol, but they let it transmit and then delay the explosion for when it gets back to its base ship. Yet, Thrawn, from this, is able to use this to narrow down his search. Episode by episode, he's getting closer and closer to finding out where the rebels are. All right, episode 15, Trials of the Darksaber. This is an episode I brought up back in my Mandalorian breakdowns, and it's super important to understand the Mandalorian themes. Fen Rao gives us the history of the Darksaber.
Legend tells that it was created over 1,000 years ago by Tar Vizsla, the first Mandalorian ever inducted into the Jedi Order. After his passing, the Jedi kept the saber in their temple. That was until members of House Vizsla snuck in and liberated.
So we get this ancient history of the Mandalorians and Jedi at war with each other. In Sabine's bunk, we see a rough draft of the mural that she'll later paint on Lothal. Chopper, we find out, is got the hots for her. Kanan and Ezra take Sabine out on a sword dueling session. Ezra first shows her ready position, which Sabine demonstrates while fighting Shin Hati in Ahsoka episode 1. Kanan sheds some light on Sabine's struggles with the Force.
The Force resides in all living things, but you have to be open to it. Sabine is blocked. Her mind is conflicted.
Yes, Hu Yang in Ahsoka similarly dismisses Sabine's Force abilities. But during this training, Morai Bird still flap down to watch. Fen Rao gives Sabine Mandalorian vambraces that she will continue to wear in Ahsoka. She uses these to get the upper hand, but Kanan shuts her down for cheating, saying the Jedi won the war with the Mandalorians, and it wasn't through shortcuts, it was through discipline. Now, while Dave Filoni was crafting the Kanan Jarrus character, it was really important to him to craft him as an incomplete mentor in the style of Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings. That he's just too far beyond his ability to communicate his wisdom to the younger Padawans. So he's not a perfect teacher, and he often makes mistakes and learns lessons himself a little too late. So eventually Kanan finally comes around and just lets Sabine train with the actual Darksaber.
It's heavier than I thought.
Energy constantly flows through the crystal. You're not fighting with a simple blade as much as you are directing a current of power. Your thoughts, your actions, they become energy.
And as Sabine duels, that blade gets lighter and lighter for her, a contrast to Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, who always struggles to lift that Darksaber. And we get this amazing emotional moment from Sabine as she duels Kanan.
Everything I did was for family. For Mandalore! I built weapons. Terrible weapons! But the Empire used them on Mandalore, on friends, on family. I helped enslave my people!
Please, please, please keep all of this in mind as you watch Sabine in Ahsoka, because this is where she is coming from. And this moment always just wrecks me.
The Empire wanted to destroy worlds, and they did. They destroyed mine.
So with Sabine and Ahsoka in the Ahsoka series, it's not a master-apprentice relationship. Sabine just wants a sister. And we see how messed up Sabine's family is in episode 16, Legacy of Mandalore. They head to Cronist, a snowy mountain setting that I think is the prettiest location in Star Wars. They're attacked by super commandos led by Sabine's brother Tristan. They meet her mother, Countess Ursa, who also appears in the final season of Clone Wars, by the way. And we learn that House Wren is loyal to the Empire, with Gar Saxon considered the Emperor's hand. Ursa gives Saxon the Darksaber in a trade for her daughter, but Saxon doesn't hold up his end of the bargain, and we end up in this incredible duel between Saxon with the Darksaber and Sabine with Ezra's lightsaber, setting up Sabine to later use this green blade throughout Ahsoka. Sabine disarms Saxon of the Darksaber, but Saxon didn't technically win it in combat, so the curse of none of these Mandalorians earning the Darksaber lives on. Sabine, for now, decides to stay behind on Cronus. Alright, episode 17, Through Imperial Eyes, which is how this episode opens, through the eyes of our secret Fulcrum spy, Kallus. Ezra tries to get him to defect, and Thrawn arrives on his Star Destroyer, the Chimera. That was the name of his ship from his original novels. He trains in a sexy vest against a DT sentry droid, and his shutdown word is Ruck, which is the name of a male Noghri warrior who first protected, then assassinated Thrawn in those books. This is such a great Thrawn episode, and I highly recommend it. Thrawn's hallway is actually filled with Easter eggs. We see the Holy Grail from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Lucasfilm loves to do this. Just see Andor, it's kind of weird. We see Clone Commander Gree's helmet from Revenge of the Sith. This is one of the guys Yoda beheaded on Kashyyyk during Order 66. We see a bust of an Abednego, that's Elo Astes species created for the Force Awakens film, and then a digital version of Ralph McQuarrie's concept art that Rebels used as a painting of Lothal. And then on the back wall, Ysalamiri. These are the lizard-like creatures from Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire novels, which were immune to the Force. They emitted these anti-Force bubbles. And of course, we see that Thrawn kept the Calicori that he stole from the Syndulla family, because for Thrawn, it is all about the art. Wolf Yularen from the ISB appears. You remember him? He was the white uniformed officer in Tarkin's meeting room on the Death Star in A New Hope. We end this episode with Thrawn knowing that Kallus is a traitor, but he lets it slide for now. Another important thing about Thrawn, our man is patient. All right, episode 18, Secret Cargo. Secret Cargo revealed to be Senator Mon Mothma, another figure who returns in Ahsoka during the New Republic era, but this episode is important for her Andor period. And here she speaks out against the Emperor for the Gorman massacre. She's voiced by Genevieve O'Reilly.
I name the Emperor himself for ordering the brutal attacks on the people of Gorman. Our self-appointed Emperor is little more than a lying executioner.
Mothma is now out of the Senate, on the run, and they have to fight off Thrawn's TIE defenders in the Archeon Nebula, which reminds me of Furiosa losing to Morton Joe's men during the Sandstorm in Fury Road. It looks really cool. Mothma escapes to Dantooine, where she sends out a message to inspire the rebel cause.
For too long, I've watched the heavy hand of the Empire strangle our liberties. Despite Imperial threats, despite the Emperor himself, I have no fear as I take new action.
We see Bail Organa and General Jen Dodonna, and we also see the Lothal Bar from Season 1's Empire Day. So paired with Ezra's big broadcast in Season 1, this is the next important mass media call to action for the Rebel Alliance. All right, episode 19, Double Agent Droid. It's a Chopper episode. Chopper gets hijacked by an Imperial agent, the Controller. There is a fun moment in this episode where the spy ship control room is inspired by George Lucas's first feature, THX 1138, a movie that gets referenced all the time, but you know what? Watch it. It's groundbreaking, but also not that good. All right, episode 20, Twin Sons. Definitely one to watch. This episode opens with the twin sons of Tatooine, and Maul, returning here after first seeing Kenobi in Phantom Menace, wanders the desert delirious.
See him in my mind's eye. Kenobi. Kenobi!
And you just gotta see the behind the scenes footage of Sam Witwer recording this in the ADR booth.
In my mind's eye. Kenobi.
Kenobi! Ezra and Chopper sneak off to Tatooine to save Obi-Wan Kenobi, but Ezra sees how coarse and rough and irritating the sand is. He doesn't really need to be in this episode. He does get saved once by Maul and again by Kenobi, and Kenobi tells Ezra that Obi-Wan Kenobi isn't the answer to defeating the Sith as far as he knows. This is just a manipulation by Maul. Kenobi at first has no intention of fighting Maul until Maul forces his hand.
Oh, you have a purpose here. Perhaps you are protecting something? No. Protecting someone.
And this leads to one of the shortest but best duels in all of Star Wars, and it's all in the build-up. Now, Sam Witwer loves to break this down in interviews, but basically, Kenobi starts in the Clone Wars era Ewan McGregor pose with the two fingers, and then he realizes, no, mistakes were made during that era. So then he shifts to the two-handed Alec Guinness ready position from A New Hope. But then, seeing the confidence in Maul's eyes, he decides to take another breath, and he shifts to the Qui-Gon Jinn pose. Batter up, trying to bait Maul into trying the same move that he used on Qui-Gon. Maul takes this bait, he tries to do the same kind of flourish and stab, but Kenobi is ready for him. And recognizing that he has freed his old foe from this vengeance, he cradles him.
Tell me, is it the Chosen One?
He is.
He will avenge us.
chills. Maul and Obi-Wan are finally united in their sense of betrayal from what the Emperor did to them. And Maul dies with confidence that there exists somewhere a child who will restore balance to the Force. This episode ends with Obi-Wan looking out over the large homestead as Aunt Beru calls. Now this would be a few years after Obi-Wan Kenobi's interactions with Owen and Beru in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series on Disney+. And Luke, I think, would actually be around Ezra's age here. They actually used one of Ezra's character models for the animation of Luke running. Okay, on to the two-part finale. Episodes 21 and 22, 0 Hour, parts 1 and 2. The rebels plan their attack on the Imperial factory on Lothal, but Thrawn catches Kallus giving a fulcrum message, and Thrawn triangulates the vectors of this message to find the planet.
Such as a system which does not appear on Imperial charts, but is represented in the art of the ancient people of this sector. I believe they call this Attalon.
The ancient people of this sector. This could connect with the ancient star map that Morgan Elspeth is using on Ahsoka to find her way to Thrawn, which I have theorized could be based on the ancient Rakatan Empire seen in the Knights of the Old Republic games. This could explain why the home of Bendu is a place older than what is known to the Jedi or the Sith. And I just love that all season long we have had this arc for Thrawn to study each puzzle piece of art and history, and finally, by patiently allowing Kallus to do his thing, he got the answer he needed. This is the clever villainy Star Wars needs more of, and it's the reason we're so excited to see Thrawn in live action. Please don't mess this up, Ahsoka. In this episode, there is an incredible space battle. The Imperial Interdictor comes back, pulling out any escaping ships back out of hyperspace, but Commander Sato sacrifices himself. Thrawn only loses his position this episode because Constantine defies his order so that he can get glory. Really, Thrawn doesn't make any mistakes this episode. That's what makes him so scary. Kanan rallies Bendu to join the fight, calling him a coward.
Perhaps it is the will of the Force that the Jedi and all your kind perish, and I serve the will of the Force!
You know what? He ain't wrong. Thrawn bombards the chopper base, protected by Rex and Zeb's shield at first, but Thrawn ceases fire. Meanwhile, Hera calls Kanan.
Now please, come home, love.
Yeah, as the series goes on, we do start to get more and more affectionate moments between these two. Ezra heads to Cronus to recruit Sabine, and we see Tristan in this moment has an orange marking on his shoulder pauldron, so Sabine has clearly started decorating her brother's armor. She's kind of like Harold with a purple crayon. She's great. So Thrawn leads with a ground invasion now, wearing his goofy ground invasion hat, and he lands with some Imperial Death Troopers. We actually saw these troopers with Krennic in Rogue One, so Thrawn surrounds them, but Bendu Mufasa's in the sky with a lightning storm, and if you look closely, as they all escape, he takes out some AT-ATs, AT-ATs, walkers, whatever you want to call them, but also takes out some Y-Wings. So Bendu was not kidding about not picking a side here, and he really just wants these Warren kids off his damn lawn. Ezra and Sabine's group disables the Interdictor, and Kallus gets away in an escape pod. The rebels escape right past Governor Price. Not a good look for her. They all regroup on Yavin 4. This is the final episode to take place in the year 2 BBY, meaning with season 4, we will be entering the final year before the Battle of Yavin. But I will leave you here. This is perhaps the most cryptic moment of the season, and a super important moment between Bendu and Thrawn.
You cannot see, but I can.
What do you see?
I see your defeat, like many arms surrounding you in a cold embrace.
Whoa! Now, we could read this as what happens in the season 4 finale. Thrawn is caught in the cold embrace of the many arms of the Purrgil, zipping him off into hyperspace. But was that truly his defeat? Because Thrawn is still alive in Ahsoka. But it's important to note that Bendu does not say death here, he says defeat. Still, Thrawn's death, whenever it comes, hopefully sometime beyond Ahsoka, because I don't want him to die in this series, his death, his inevitable death, may circle back to this premonition to show Thrawn dying surrounded by some different arms. Maybe his acolytes all dogpiling on him and strangling him. Thrawn's survival from the Purrgil may give him a false confidence that he thinks he already cheated death according to what Bendu predicted, making the guy think he's immortal. But you know what? Pride goeth before the fall. Okay, here it is, our Rebel Season 3 cheat sheet. Starting with our must-watch episodes, all of them! I know you're not gonna watch all of them, but the premiere and the finale are fun and important, but I would say, really just for the other Star Wars titles, watch Episode 11, Visions and Voices, Episode 14, Trials of the Darksaber, and Episode 17, Through Imperial Eyes, because it's just a great Thrawn episode, and of course, Episode 20, Twin Sons. Next, Thrawn is the smartest villain in the Star Wars lore. He's got appreciation of art history, he knows ancient star maps, and he's got patience that just makes him such a formidable foe. 3, Mandalorians hate each other, and the Darksaber has divided them more than it has united them. 4, Nightsister magic is real, and it is a different kind of sorcery than what the Jedi or the Sith use, and it, I believe, is what cursed us with the Darksaber. And finally, Bendu is a mysterious Force wielder who also surpasses the Jedi or the Sith duality. In a world without Jedi or Sith, Bendu and Nightsisters are far more interesting. So please do us a favor and recommend these Rebels recap videos to everyone you know who's watching Ahsoka and wants to know what happened in Rebels but just doesn't have the time or doesn't feel like watching all the Rebels episodes. Huge thanks to Noah Chen and Jordan Morris for their help writing this breakdown. Subscribe to all 3 channels in the New Rockstars network. Follow me at EA Voss. Thanks for watching. Bye.